you so very much for tuning in. Dems, look, I would say completely unhinged conservatives rally around RFK Jr.'s masterclass confirmation hearing performance. He knocked it out of the park, ladies and gentlemen. To use a baseball analogy, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Every single one of President Donald Trump's picks will be confirmed. In large part because they're fantastic, awesome, wonderful, and also Democrats are just so inept, and they've lost pretty much every single ounce of political capital that they acquired the past 10, 20 years. The Democratic Party has a tiny fraction of the influence it once had. It has a tiny fraction of the influence it had even several years ago. And so what Biden and Harris did to the Democrats is akin to what Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld did to the Republican Party. It's been completely demolished by President Trump, thank God. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. RFK Jr., similar to, I'm not equating him directly to Socrates, but look up the trial in Athens, 500 BC. Socrates was accused of going against impiety, against the gods, and you look at and corrupting society, and you look at the sacred cows that Democrats have, the blasphemy and heresy that you're accused of if you simply think outside of the box, and yet none of them ever refuted any of Trump or especially RFK Jr.'s claims. Hit subscribe. Paul Bartlett, thank you to my super chat. I cannot thank you enough, everybody. Let's get started. He'll be confirmed. Thank God, too, because we've had a failed, corrupt, sad, and you had Falsey pardoned for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. This man writes a book, RFK Jr., and then Mr. Falsey gets pardoned. You do the math on that. You do the math on that. Oh, and he'll get confirmed. Thank God.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your decades-long advocacy for a clean environment, for children's health. I can't say as I'm surprised by the hostility on the other side. I'm highly disappointed in it. I don't know if you remember when you called me up and you were contemplating setting your political differences aside, joining forces with President Trump on an area of agreement, addressing chronic illness, trying to find the root cause of all these problems facing this nation. My first response was, Bobby, this is an answer to my prayers. We need to get to the answers of this, but even more, we need to heal and unify this divided nation. I'm not necessarily the most optimistic guy because we've got enormous challenges facing this nation, but I thought, wow, here's somebody from the left, somebody I don't agree with on many issues politically, coming together with President Trump and focusing on an area of agreement, something that the American people desperately want. Finding out the answers. What has caused autism? What is causing chronic illness? Ms. Kennedy, I think I've come to know what's in your heart. I think I know the personal and political price you've paid for this decision. I want to say publicly, I thank you for that. I truly appreciate what you're doing here. Can't we come together as a nation and do this?
We're not going to, the Democrats will never accept blasphemy, heresy, insubordination, They will excommunicate anyone who doesn't fall in line. I saw this as a Bernie Sanders supporter. And you look at Bernie Sanders, he's essentially probably a good human being, but a tool of the Democratic Party. Elizabeth Warren, she didn't even endorse Bernie Sanders. Harris didn't run on AOC's Green New Deal. They don't believe anything they say. They don't even have a functioning primary. It's a social club, essentially. Liberal, left-leaning politics is essentially some type of cult or social club. They don't believe anything they say. But it's more than that. It's like almost an atheistic religion. It is a religion, ladies and gentlemen. And if I know somebody who votes Biden or Harris, what do I care? I don't care. If a liberal knows a Trump supporter, it's the end of the world. That person will be excommunicated and shunned, and because they've committed blasphemy and heresy. And that's what happened to RFK Jr. He's a Kennedy, but that wasn't enough. He dared to crash or destroy some of the sacred cows that the wonderful atheists within the Democratic Party worship as if they were idols. And RFK Jr. said, I just don't agree with you, and here's why. Nobody refutes his claims. Nobody really refutes anything RFK Jr. says. They just say, how dare you? You said this, you said that, you're corrupting the country. You're not pious enough to our gods, to our religion, our wonderful, morally superior liberal religion. And I'm not equating him to Socrates, so any imbecile who takes this out of context will be just that. But you can look at Socrates, you can look 500 BC. What happened? He was charged with offending the gods. And instead of admitting guilt, he chose another path. He chose to be genuine, which came with consequences. And like today, things have changed, not that much, but things have changed a lot. But still, if you are genuine and you give a thoughtful, fact-based argument, the vanguards of good, polite society will descend upon you and try to ruin your name, try to disparage you, try to prevent you from making money, honey, and they will, there's nothing more vicious and ruthless than a wonderful, highly educated, morally superior liberal Democrat who's been scorned because a person like RFK Jr. Took one of their sacred cows and just crashed it on the ground.
Can we do? Aren't you getting tired of this? I'm getting tired of this. So again, Mr. Kennedy, I need to enter in the record. These are just 11 letters of support signed by 63,000 people, thousands of doctors. From the American Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, Independent Medical Alliance, the North Carolina Physicians and Freedom Group, Governor Jeff Landry from Louisiana. These are Americans, nonpartisan. A lot of these people, I know because I've advocated with you. A lot of them are Democrats. They put their political differences aside. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter this in the record.
Without objection.
I also do want to, Mr. Kennedy, as long as I have you here, I've written over 70 oversight letters to the federal health agencies under the Biden administration. I've virtually gotten squat out of them, okay? What I get is we get, for example, 50 pages of Anthony Fauci's emails redacted. Oh, by the way.
Preemptive pardon, ladies and gentlemen. Why is there a preemptive pardon? Which, by the way, the legality is, why was there a preemptive pardon? That's a question that needs to be asked. by the morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats. If you're watching this and you happen to stumble upon this segment and you're a highly educated, morally superior liberal Democrat, why was there a preemptive pardon of Falsey? Why? Just, it's a rhetorical question, but why?
So the latest one was 17 pages. Instead of issuing a health alert on the myocarditis they knew was impacting young men early in 2021, instead of issuing an alert on the Health Alert Network, they developed 17 pages of talking points. This was given to the public under a FOIA request. They had to go to court. They've got a new way of redacting. They don't black things out. They just give you white pages, so you don't even know what they have redacted. So again, I've issued a subpoena now.
Redactions and pardons and preemptive pardons, along with redactions, along with laws that say you can't sue a certain company, equate to guilt. This isn't rocket science. You don't. When people, I can't stand when. Oh, I'm not a lawyer. So what? Do you have common sense? The best lawyers have common sense. The worst lawyers lack basic common sense. Oh, I'm not an expert. You don't have to be an expert. A lot of times, throughout history, experts have been wrong routinely. Do you have any modicum of wisdom? Wisdom is more important than intelligence. You can do poorly on a standardized test where your IQ might be lower than the average, but if you possess wisdom, you'll be happy. You'll do a lot of good things for your family, your friends, humanity, and you'll live a great, good, beautiful life. I'd rather have wisdom than intelligence or the wonderful, morally superior, liberal viewpoint of intelligence.
Now, to cover the information I've requested in 70 oversight letters, my question to you is, as Secretary of HHS, will you honor these requests from Congress, and will you make HHS transparent?
Yeah, my approach to HHS, as I said before, Senator, is radical transparency. Democrats and Republicans ought to be able to come in and get information that was generated at taxpayer expense, that is owned by the American taxpayer. They shouldn't get redacted documents. Public health agencies should be transparent. And if we want Americans to restore trust in the public health agencies, we need transparency. I want to say something about what you first said. When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children.
And I love RFK Jr. and Ron Johnson is awesome. Love him too. Senator Ron Johnson, Wisconsin. May he be senator for 25 more years. God bless him. Or longer. I don't need, I love there are many beautiful Democrats, liberals who are beautiful, amazing human beings. And my family, friends, I love them. They don't need to agree with Trump. It's all good. No one needs to be unified in terms of political ideology anymore. I don't think that's that important. You focus on what's best for the country, national security, what's best for American families, what's best for the United States of America. You put the United States of America first. If you don't want to, that's your political ideology. You lost the popular vote to Trump, Senate, House, every battleground state. The Supreme Court isn't Democrat. It's conservative majority. So Democrats can simply just try to show the American public that their ideology is superior, which they failed to do. They silenced, censored, demeaned, insulted. It didn't work. None of their nasty, underhanded, dirty tactics worked. Shunning people, excommunicating people didn't work. And now they're not going to Thanksgiving. Oh no! More turkey for the Trumpers. You're only hurting yourself. There was a commercial, I think it was a Gillette commercial. Liberal ideology or left-leaning ideology was so warped and twisted that suddenly barbecues were seen as like bad things. Who doesn't like a barbecue? Everyone loves barbecues, left or right, but apparently, I think it was I'm not sure, don't quote me on it, I think it was the Gillette commercial. It was like, what's wrong with a barbecue? What on earth is wrong with a 4th of July barbecue? But the left or the advertisers found something egregious. In that ideology, it doesn't pass. It's not logical or rational or reasonable. And Americans said, no, we want Trump. Thank God.
These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression, all of these things that are related to toxics in the environment? Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside, and say, we're going to end this? I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I have because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interests. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life and a happy family. This is something I don't need. I want to do this because we're going to fix it. And the other thing is we are attracting now a caliber of people to HHS like never before in history. And they're entrepreneurs, they're disruptors, they're innovators of immense talent that are walking away, many of them from growing concerns. They're not coming there for position. They're coming there because they want to save our country. And they're from across the political spectrum. And all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends, agreed with me on all the environmental issues that I've been working on for my whole career. Now they're against me because anything that
used to be friends, but now we're foes. Ask me why, man, no one knows. What song? What song?
President Trump does, any decision he makes has to be lampooned, derided, discredited, marginalized, vilified.
We need to move on.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily.
He'll get confirmed, but the good thing is that Democrats are showing their true colors, and it's quite amusing. Let's continue.
Now, folks, President Trump, okay? President Trump will run the HHS department, and that's the subject of the riff. So all eyes are on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today in his hearing before the Senate Finance Committee to become Secretary of Health and Human Services. People on the left and the right have taken pot shots at Mr. Kennedy over his past statements down through the years. One respected conservative editorial page spent most of his time attacking Mr. Kennedy for his climate change views, arguing that he prevented New York from drilling oil and gas in his days as an environmental lawyer. And you know what? That may be true, but it has nothing to do with the duties and responsibilities of the HHS. Here's where I come out on the RFK nomination. I support it. Why? Because President Trump wants him to run it. Mr. Trump won the election convincingly. he has a right to his own nominees, barring any clear personal legal problems, of course.
And you have like a lot of voices really quickly. This is not even important, but like, oh, what he's doing is illegal. No, it's not. Article 2 of the Constitution. He's the leader of the executive branch. Leader of the executive branch. It's in the Constitution. I believe it's Article 2. Leader of the executive branch. He can fire. He can terminate the employment of anyone he wants to. Okay? And Democrats know they're losing control of American politics. That's what this is about. One political side is losing control of American politics because they're so utterly inept and corrupt. That's why you have all the preemptive pardons and the dysfunctional primaries. They're so arrogant and corrupt.
Of course. And Mr. Kennedy has said time and again that he will execute President Trump's policies at HHS. Now, this may be an old-fashioned point of view, but that's the way the system is supposed to work. Mr. Trump won the election, not Mr. Kennedy. Trump tells Kennedy what he wants at HHS, and Kennedy is there to implement Mr. Trump's vision. Things he said years ago and has now backed off, autism, vaccinations, and so forth, unimportant, doesn't matter. A, because people do change, give him the benefit of the doubt, and B, because he has assured the president that he will carry out the president's policies. One example of that showed up at the hearing today on the question of Medicaid. Medicaid has gotten way too big, 10 million more people today than pre-COVID. Total spending has grown by 60% to $963 billion. It's a sum larger than the defense budget. And it's quite likely that Mr. Trump will restore incentives to work for the able-bodied, and that includes Medicaid.
You need Medicaid. You need these government programs. Okay? I agree with that. The problem with Democrats and liberal ideology in politics is that they will be the first to say we need to shut down economic activity, like they did 4 years ago, 5 years ago now. That caused a terrible, terrible deficit and debt problem, which makes it more difficult to then fund these programs, even if they're funded by taxpayer dollars. The Democratic Party wants it all. They want to shut down economic activity when they're told to by people who are preemptively pardoned years later. They want to fund every single social program, no matter what. They want to listen to Liz Cheney and the Bush Republicans about endless wars. They have zero concept or caring of, like, you can use the word fiscal responsibility, which is, a loaded term, but they have zero concept that there's like a finite amount of dollars, currency, money. So they don't see a problem with Liz Cheney, and they don't see a problem with Liz Cheney voting for Harris and Democratic governors shutting down economic activity. It's like totally fine. They don't see the irony here.
Which is supposed to be a poverty program for those who are physically incapable of work. Mr. Kennedy addressed his desire to reform and reduce Medicaid as per President Trump's policy. He said it several times during the hearing. Here's one of them. Take a listen, please.
Our ship is sinking. Our 60% increase in Medicaid over the past 4 years is the biggest budget line now, and it's growing faster than any other. We have the highest chronic disease burden of any country in the world. This is an existential threat economically, to our military, to our health, to our sense of well-being, and it is a priority for President Trump. And that's why he asked me to run the agency, and if I'm privileged to be confirmed, that's exactly what I'll do.
There you have it. Did you hear him what he said? He asked me, and if I'm privileged to get confirmed, that's exactly what I will do. That's how cabinet government should run. By the way, RFK is going to have some really smart people around him. Sabarini Chatterjee, if I've said it right, he's going to run the National Institutes of Health.
If you're a morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat, honestly, do you want somebody who was preemptively pardoned? Or do you want a man like RFK Jr. who dares to think outside of a paradigm of thought? You know, I read the National Review, and there's some brilliant people there. I don't agree with everybody there, but you know what? It's a very well-known, renowned conservative publication. I would ask the journalists at the National Review, would you rather have a person like Falsey, who is preemptively pardoned, or a man like RFK Jr., who dares to break and destroy the sacred cows of liberal and traditional politics? I mean, you don't have to agree with him. You don't have to. Let's say a person thinks that he's disingenuous. But who would you rather have? Somebody that says, okay, we're not going to demand every American do this at once. Not everyone has to jump on one foot while juggling bowling pins in flames. Not everyone has to do that. If you want to, go ahead. We're not going to demand that you do that if you're a soldier or if you're in a university or whatever. The point is, he's going to allow you to simply do what you wish, what your doctor, what your health professional tells you to do. There's too much emphasis on personality. You know, you have brilliant journalists here and there, not many of them, who are, I know this person is disingenuous. I don't like this person's attitude. I don't like this person's behavior, his personality. Judge a man or a woman by their actions. Can you refute anything that RFK Jr. has said? If you can't refute anything he has said, or if you maybe can refute a couple of things and you have a difference of opinion, compare RFK Jr. to a man like Falsey, who was preemptively pardoned for lying under oath. Numerous times. And Lord knows what else. Well, I mean, read RFK Jr.'s book.
Marty McCary, well known to us on this show, who will run the Federal Drug Administration. These will be top-flight grade A lieutenants who will assist Mr. Kennedy at HHS. And also, Kennedy emphasized time and again that he wants HHS to be completely transparent. And he wants the agency to be a major provider of health-related information. Transparency, information. And by the way, if he could get hospitals and doctors to provide transparent prices for their services, that would be a great leap forward in holding down health costs and making the system more efficient. And then finally, I confessed to liking the fact that Mr. Kennedy is a Democrat, or at least a former Democrat, in President Trump's Republican cabinet. There's just something about having a Kennedy serve under President Trump that strikes my fancy. But at the end of the day, Mr. Trump won the election big time. He's
big time.
As we conclude the hearing. With that, Senator Marshall.
Thank you, Chairman. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease account for probably 80% of health challenges in America. You know how many times I heard my friends across the aisle mention any three of those? I don't know if we've lost the forest for the trees here. Vaccine is a critical issue. I understand that. I don't see how Mr. Kennedy's position could be diseases across the country. And this Make America Healthy Again movement is palpable to me. It started on the campaign trail in 2020 when moms I'd never met, that never involved in the political process, came up to me and said, look, I want to make these choices about my children with my doctor, not the federal government. That it's a very real thing. moms, dads, grandparents across the country grab me and say, look, why do 20% of our children now, why are they on a prescription drug? So, Mr. Kennedy, what is your prescription to help make America healthy again? What's your vision? What does that look like to you?
Thank you, Senator Marshall.
By the way, were Democrats ever saying we want to make America healthy again, or healthy, period? Have you heard that? All you heard was, you must do this. If you don't do this, you're not invited to the birthday party. You must do this. If you don't do this, it's a big problem. How dare you say anything about it? These are sacred cows that Trump completely annihilated and demolished. It's such a beautiful thing. The Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party I grew up. I was a lifelong Democrat. I voted for Bill Clinton twice. No, once. I was too young for the first time. I voted for Bush. Al Gore, President Obama twice, and President Trump twice. And there's millions of people like me. Let's continue.
We're having epidemics of all these chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, allergic diseases, obesity. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. No other country has anything like this. In Japan, the obesity rate is still 3%. And epidemics are not caused by genes. Genes may provide the vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. Something is poisoning the American people. And we know that the primary culprits are changing food supply, the switch to.
He sounds, God bless him, and first of all, he's brilliant. The man is a very intelligent man. And this is what a 1988, 1987 far left former hippie would say at a health food store. This is something you'd hear at a health food store in 1989 or 1997 as somebody was telling you, like where the oat bran was or whatever. Like it's, oh yeah, we have this new quinoa or whatever. I mean, like, what is wrong with what he's saying? It's like amazing. But of course, the atheist, the wonderful, I'm by the way, the smartest person I know is agnostic, or one of the, agnostic people. If you're agnostic, great. If you're an atheist, I love Christopher Hitchens. Oh my God, Christopher Hitchens would be a Trump supporter at this point, because they would have gone after him. The liberals would have tried to ruin him. And I love Christopher Hitchens, but there are beautiful, amazing, awesome, intelligent atheists, but they're not, their religion isn't politics. Okay, there's something beyond this earth, beyond this world. When, God forbid, you take your last breath, you're not going to be thinking of MSNBC or Fox News, okay? But the thing is, what RFK Jr. does, what Trump does, what Tulsi Gabbard, hopefully Kash Patel, John Radcliffe, I can't name many on the left, but there are some liberal journalists that are really good, okay? What people do who are genuine human beings is that they put truth and honesty above politics, okay? Tell me a hoax that Trump tried to perpetrate. For the big lie, they say, is an emotion. What Trump was saying is that he doesn't trust results were accurate. That's an emotion. You can, and it's a motion justified by Biden being forced out 4 years later, less than 4 years later. But anyway, that's a whole point. That's another point. Even calling it a big lie is disingenuous. But the point is like all of these attacks against RFK Jr., it's because he did not kowtow and bow and worship the sacred gods, the sacred gods of atheists within the Democratic Party.
Highly chemical intensive processed foods. We have 10,000 ingredients in our country, in our foods. The Europeans have only 400. If you buy McDonald's French fries in our country, there's 11 ingredients, my understanding. In Europe, there's only 3. If you buy Fruit Loops in our country, they're loaded with food dyes, with yellow dye, red dye, blue dye, and many other ingredients. The same company makes the same product with different ingredients for Canada and Europe.
So one theory or belief or possible viewpoint is that the shelf life, there's an emphasis on longer shelf life in the United States of America because of financial considerations, which of course doesn't equate to health.
And at age, we don't have good science on all these things. And that is deliberate. That's a deliberate choice not to study the things that are truly making us sick, that are not only contributing to chronic disease, but to mortalities from infectious disease. We need to get a handle on this because if we don't, it's an existential threat. Our country is not going to be destroyed because we get the marginal tax rate wrong or because we get one of these culture war issues that we've been talking about today wrong. It's going to be destroyed if we continue down this trajectory of chronic disease. We need to fix our food supply, and that's the number one.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Certainly, I share your concern with ultra-processed foods. On the other end of this food chain are my farmers and ranchers back home. Would you just take a second and share your compassion, how you feel about farmers and ranchers?
If you go to other countries and you go to their equivalent of 7-Eleven or like a food mart, there's a lot more healthy alternatives within even the kind of C-stores, the gas station type of stores. These are questions that Democrats didn't ask, haven't asked, they don't care about. And it's very noble of RFK Jr. to want to help human beings live longer. What is wrong with that? What on earth is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that, of course. It's just, you know what? I learned a long time ago when I said, I'm not voting for Clinton, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders. Then I realized Bernie Sanders was pretty much a part of the warped, twisted corruption within the Democratic Party, although he might be a good human being, if you know him personally, I'm sure. They demand, the wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats demand absolute obedience and loyalty. If you don't give them that, oh my God, the sinister, vicious malice, the retribution comes out. They're not going to Thanksgiving. Don't you understand? They're not going to go to Thanksgiving.
That they respond to the market. They don't dictate the market. They grow what the market is wanting them to grow.
Lou Maldonado. Thank you, Lou. Greatly appreciate. To my super chat, Nicholas. Thank you. Paul, thank you. To my super chat, thank you.
And Senator Hawley told me the other day that his brother-in-laws are all farmers. And he said 4 out of every 5 of his brother-in-laws has Parkinson's disease. And that kind of cluster we're seeing across farm country of cancers, autoimmune diseases, obesity, etc. Oh, it's and we can now not export American food to Europe because the Europeans won't take our food. That's not good for farmers. We're also destroying our soil because some of the chemicals that farmers use destroy the microbiome, and that causes the erosion of the soil. You can't get water infiltration. Water pools up and it washes the soil off. Agronomists now estimate that we only have, if we continue doing these processes, only 60 harvests left before our soil is gone. Farmers are using seeds and chemicals that are, over the long term, are costing them and us. And what we need to do is we need to support the farmers. We need the farmers as partners if we're going to make them work. And I don't want a single farmer to go out of business under our watch. I don't regulate farms. If I'm privileged to be confirmed, I'm not regulating farms. That's under USDA. But I want to partner with all of my decisions with USDA and with the farm community to make sure that we don't lose more farmers in this country, but that we also transition. We offer and incentivize transitions to regenerative agriculture, to no-till agriculture, and to less chemically intensive. And by the way, I've also met with the chemical industry and the fertilizer and herbicide companies, and they want to do the same thing. Oh, and I think we're on the trajectory to do that, and we need to incentivize initiatives to accelerate that trajectory.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the great news is that my farmers in Kansas are selling products to Europe, that today's regenerative practices, soil health, all those things are priorities for Kansas farmers. Many of us are doing many of those things already. We just need it to be more widespread. If I could just wrap up my remarks, though, is that, again, going back to the big picture here, 60% of Americans have a chronic disease. Mr. Kennedy, I believe for such a time as this that you're not just one of 300 million people. I think that you are the person to lead HHS to make America healthy again, that God has a divine purpose for you, and I look forward to your confirmation and working with you to make America healthy again.
Thank you.
I think God has a divine purpose for RFK Jr., definitely Donald Trump, and his cabinet. We've had enough, ladies and gentlemen, of... I mean, nobody knows what's out there, after you take your final breath. But there should be some emphasis on making the world better, focusing on peace, making people healthier. If President Trump, the anti-war choice, can bring peace to the world, where we don't have the invasions we had under Biden, can make the cost of food, lower the cost of food, which helps Americans, which helps people feed their children. My God almighty. This is a good thing. If RFK Jr. could bring some truth to a very corrupt establishment within Washington, D.C. and within the country, that's a very good thing. Isn't it a good thing? I mean, like he said, RFK Jr., Donald Trump, they don't need these things. Biden needs these things. Okay, the Clintons, Bidens, the Democrats and Republicans, old school Republicans, they need politics to make money. That's why when Trump pulled the security clearances off of those 51 intelligence officials that lied through their teeth, you know how much money in a security clearance, it's very lucrative. You can make millions of dollars. You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year having a security clearance, being privy to information that nobody else knows, and consulting, defense industry, contractors, all these things. But the point is, Trump doesn't need politics. RFK Jr. doesn't need politics. He grew up in it. Okay, Democrats need politics to make money. Trump doesn't. He's lost money. Can you imagine the past 8 years if he didn't have the negative media coverage? He could have had probably production companies, movie, studios. Who knows what he would have had? Even more resorts. But anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be confirmed, RFK Jr. I'm a big fan of RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, and I trust John Radcliffe will do the right thing at Central Intelligence. I hope and pray. Anyway, God bless you all. See you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks, everybody. We'll step it up. In